So I was listening and watching uh, a lecture by Alain de Botton that was delivered somewhere in Australia, I think at an opera house, and he was giving his usual message, which is really an anti-individualist message. But a lot of people don't realize it because it is couched in such humanistic language that a lot of people are, in fact, attracted to it. Um, and the point of his lecture was that it does not matter uh, who you end up with, that you can love anyone, and that romantic love is uh, probably something that we were conditioned to feel by literature, but it's not real, and that in fact there are probably a lot of people walking around pretending that they're in love because they think they can't be in a relationship unless they are in love. And but it's okay, you don't have to pretend anymore. Uh, the secret is out, it's not real, you know. I do think that there's a lot of truth in what he says, and that's why it resonates with people. But it's not true for everybody, and that's part of the problem. He says that we are now in the age of romantic love, and then he gives an example from Flaubert's Madame Bovary to show how awful it is. But of course, Flaubert was not a romanticist. He was an anti-romanticist. He was a realist, and he was on the same bandwagon as de Botton. He just wanted to tear apart the image of romantic love and show how silly it was. Um, in fact, maybe a higher percentage of the world's population is not given to romantic love because they're not limerent. And it doesn't have anything specifically to do with love. It also has to do with preferences. So some of us have very strong preferences on everything. You know, we know exactly what kind of pizza we like. We know what movies we like. We're in love with certain characters in movies and television and books, and we are totally not interested in other movies and other television shows and other books. We have strong preferences and we won't change that. And then there are other people who just go by trends. You know, their favorite clothing is whatever happens to be fashionable today. Their favorite show is the one that is popular today. They're going to read the latest novel on the bestseller list because it's on the bestseller list, and they want to be able to discuss it at parties with other people. And it doesn't matter whether they like the book or not, but they're very open. And being open like that, they just don't have a preference. So even something like, what's your favorite color, is a question that not everybody has an answer to. You can say that we were conditioned by society to think that we're supposed to have a favorite color, and if we don't have one, well, we make one up. And of course, if we don't have one and we make up the favorite color, today it could be red, tomorrow it could be blue, and somebody for whom the whole question of favorite color um, is important might think, this person is lying to me. Yesterday his favorite color was red, today it's blue. He's lying. He's keeping the real favorite color a secret from me. And we often have that kind of a clash with people for whom some things are just not that important. So when I was watching that lecture, Um, Here's what it reminded me of. In 1976, during the bicentennial, I visited England, and at the time, I had a best friend. So I was obsessed with this best friend because I'm one of those limerent people, and I was having a conversation with my host in London, and I was going on, and I said, "Oh, my friend, let's call her Susie. That's not her real name, but so Susie says this about that, and she really likes to do this, and on and on. Almost every subject that we brought up that we were talking about, I inserted something about Susie, and finally, kind of, he was laughing silently to himself, and so I asked him, "Why are you laughing?" And he says, "Well, you keep talking about Susie all the time." And I said, "Yes, because she's my friend. Don't you have any friends?" And he said, "Yes, I have many friends, but I'm not obsessed with them." Okay, well, that's just it. To me, if you had a friend, you pretty much had to be obsessed with that person. Otherwise, it's not your friend. I either like somebody a lot or I don't like them at all. Um, for most people, it's not like that. And I think it's that way with everything in their lives. You can talk to them about what profession they would like to be in or what profession they are in, and they're not going to be passionate about it. And you might get the impression they don't like their job, but that's not actually the case. They like to work, they like the workplace, they like to socialize with other people in the workplace. They may be perfectly happy and content with their job, but they are not in love with their job. They're not obsessed. They might be married. They might be happily married. They might have a spouse that they're truly, they have a really nice arrangement going, and they're not ever going to get a divorce. And they're very content. But you won't get the impression that they're in love because, in fact, they're not in love. But that doesn't mean that nobody is ever in love. Rather than it being a new thing that we suddenly realize that romantic love is a falsehood and that really we should have make reasonable choices about a mate. This has been ongoing. When I was a teenager, that's exactly what my great aunt told me. That's exactly what I heard from everyone, including my friend Susie, which is not her real name. Okay, so what did Susie say? Uh, she said that she could fall, I mean, that she could marry. She wasn't talking about falling in love at all. She thought the romantic ideal was wrong. She was a Christian, she was an Episcopalian, and she believed in loving everyone. And she thought she could be a very good wife to any man, provided that he were normal. Now, of course, I had no idea what she meant by normal, but just so you understand her situation, let's backtrack to Susie's early childhood. So Susie's parents were happily married and had 4 children, and everything was going well. And her father was a professor at a university, and he was content with his family life. But this was maybe in the 60s. I mean, it was in the 60s, and he kind of got flower fever. And one day he turned to his wife, Susie's mom, and he said, "I love you and I love the children, but I don't want to do this anymore. So, how about I quit my job and I get a motorcycle? Maybe we get 2 motorcycles and we tour the country with our 4 kids on the back of the motorcycle. Wouldn't that be a much better way of living?" And his wife, Susie's mom, looked at him and said, You're crazy. I want a divorce. Okay, so this is the background to Susie. Um, Susie's mom took her 4 children to the town where Susie's dad's parents were and raised them as best she could on her own. And Susie is thinking, I don't want this to happen. I don't want a flower child. Um, so she was looking for somebody with nice conservative values, a good Christian, with whom she could form a family. And it didn't matter that he wasn't necessarily the guy she was most attracted to or anything like that.